Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi, Maseches CHULLIN Daf Kufav. We begin 3 lines from the top of the Amud, speaking about the importance of Netilas Yadayim, of washing one's hands prior to having a meal. That's the Mayim Rishonim, and at the end of the meal prior to benching, which is the Mayim Achronim. Here comes an interesting Gemara which will highlight for us the importance of these washings with actual stories that occurred way back when. Ki Asar Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi arrived from Eretz Yisrael to Bavli, he came first, followed by Ravin, who came afterwards. They were both Talmidim of Rabbi Yechanan, and then they relocated to Bavli. So when he came to Bavli, Ki Asar Rav Dimi Amar, he said as follows: you know how important Mayim Rishonim are? Mayim Rishonim he'achilu basar chazir. It so happens that during an unfortunate period in our history, the failure to wash caused consumption of chazir meat. So what happened here? Rashi brings it briefly, but the Medrash elaborates further. What happened was, it was a time of shmad, a time of difficulty, a time of coercion, where the Goyim prevented the Yidden from practicing our religion, certainly in public. So they did it in private, and they would dress like Goyim. They wouldn't overtly present as Yidden in their dress, and their mannerism, and their practices. But secretly, they did, of course, keep the Torah. So there was a Chanvani Yisrael, a restaurateur, okay, a fellow who owned a eatery, who was a Yid, a firm Yid, and officially he wasn't, a kosher store. They couldn't keep kosher, but he would keep a supply of kosher meat in the back for his Jewish patrons. How would he know who's a Yid? They all dressed alike. He would see whether the person's keeping the customs of the Yidden, whether he's practicing halacha, whether he's washing his hands, making a bracha on Netilas Yadayim, right? So what happens, one day a fellow walks in, the owner takes a look at him, not sure if he's a member of the tribe or not, and he's keeping an eye on him. He sees no washing, no bracha. Okay. He serves him non-kosher meat. After the meal was done, the fellow comes up to pay. He says, how much is the bill? So he says, it's $10. Asara money. He says, 10? How did it get so expensive? Yesterday it was 8. Yesterday, for the same meal, you charged me only 8. Now you're charging me 10? He says, no. This is different meat. This is chazir meat, more expensive. The man was flabbergasted. He almost fainted on the spot. The lashon is amdu saroisav. His hair stood up. Nibal v'nechvat. He was utterly frightened. He says to him, I'm a Yid. What'd you do to me? Why'd you feed me unkosher meat? He says, so why'd you do? When I saw you coming in here and eating without bracha until sedayim, I figured surely you're a guy. Please forgive me. Next time, be careful. And this is what the Gemara means. The failure, the neglect of Mayim Rishonim actually caused a person to eat chazir meat. Likewise, achroinim, the failure to wash Mayim Achroinim at the end of a meal, also brought about a calamity in a totally different story. Caused a woman to leave her husband, who divorced her. What was the story behind that incident? So this one is actually a Gemara Maseches Yuma Daf Pei Gimel with a fellow by the name of Kedar. So there were some Chachamim who stayed in his house. Apparently he had some sort of guest house, and when they were done, about to leave, they went to what happened was they had entrusted their money with the hotel owner. They left, their money by him for safekeeping, and then when they were about to leave, they came to fetch their money. the mister wasn't around. Initially, he had denied. Yeah, he denied ever having taken the money. Okay? So, while speaking to this fellow, Mr. Kedar, they noticed that on his, on his mustache, there's some remnants, some residue of his lunch, of his cholent, of his bean soup, machal shel adoshim, some beans. So when the mister left the home, Mr. Kedar, they went over to his wife and he says, we have a message from the husband to give us back the money that belongs to us, and they gave her he sent the password. This is the password. I had lentils for lunch. How would they know if not that he told them? So she figured it was legit, and based on this password, she handed him the money. When Mr. Kido came back home, saw the money gone, he blew a fit. What? You gave her the money? He divorced her. According to one version, divorced her. According to the next version, the Gemara, he actually killed her. So we see the importance of Mayim Achronim, because had he washed on Mayim Achronim, he would have cleansed his hands, his fingers, and the derech is also to wipe clean the mouth. He would have avoided this whole calamity. So that was Rav Dimi's version. Mayim Rishonim triggered Basa Chazir. Mayim Achronim triggered a divorce. Also Ravin later on came from Eretz Yisrael. He had a slightly different version. He says the neglect, the failure to wash Mayim Rishonim Hechilu Basar Nevela. They caused him to feed him Basar Nevela of a carcass, not as severe as Chazir. You see, Chazir has a double issue. It's unkosher to begin with, and also it's a nevela. Even your shech the Chazir is still nevela. But Basar Nevela has just one isser, so he sort of minimized the. It was just Basar Nevela, bad enough, but just Achroinim, the failure to wash my Achroinim after the meal, Hogras HaNefesh. He killed a person because he got so mad he actually killed his wife. Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak V'Simonech. If you want to remember who said what, in terms of Rav Dimi and Ravin, which version came from? Also Rav Dimi Avka, also Ravin Katla. When Rav Dimi arrived, he ejected her. When Ravin came, he killed her. Because Rav Dimi was known to have come before Ravin. So, Rav Dimi's version was that she was divorced. And Ravin's version was that she was killed. Now you can't go the other way. You can't first kill and then divorce. So, now you know that Rav Dimi was the one who came first from Babel, from Eretz Yisrael, was the one who said divorced, and Ravin took it a step further. Rab Abba, however, had a different version. He took the most strict on both sides. His version was Mayim Rishonim caused Chazir, Mayim Achronim caused death. Okay, talking about Mayim Rishonim. Itmar, we have learned as follows: Chamihor, water that was heated up, regular hot water, heated up by fire, as opposed to, naturally hot springs, which we're going to discuss in a minute. Just regular hot water. Can that be used for Mayim Rishonim, for the pre-meal wash? Chizki Amar, no, Ein Neitlim Mehen Le'Yadayim. It's not suitable for Netilas Yadayim. And Rashi explains that Chizkiah is in disagreement with the Shita yesterday that allowed it. He says you can't. Rabbi Yechon Amar, you could. Noitlin, Mem it's not considered changed water. It's a bit hot, but it's still water. Water's water. Amar Rabbi Yechonon, to support his opinion, he says, Sha'alti, I asked around. Sha'alti is Rabbi Gamliel, who is the son of Rebbe, Bnei Shel Rebbe. Va'eichel, Taharis. And he was very meticulous in terms of safeguarding his food from becoming tummy. Everything was pure, was holy. So he's certainly a person you can reckon with in these matters. He took it very, seriously. But Amralini tells me it was common practice to use hot water. All the great men of the Galil, Eisen Cain, would use hot water. It's not an issue. So that's ordinary hot water. What about Chami Tveria? Hot springs of Tveria, left over from the Mabul, right? That's just an example. Any hot spring. Now, some learn that more than being hot, it's also not really drinkable. It's not really, even an animal wouldn't. So, can you use that for Netilas Yadayim? Chizkiya Amar, he says, once again, Ein Noitlin Mehem L'Yadayim. It's not suitable for Netilas Yadayim, but for a mikveh, for full immersion of the body, that you can do, because by a mikveh there's no halacha that it has to be drinkable. Aval matbilin behen hayadayim. Oh, sorry. He says, but you can actually dip your hands in this water. So washing with a kli, right, that you can't do with this water. But if you want to dip your hands, if there's a suitable amount of water, which qualifies for a mikveh, it's 40 sa'ar, says Rashi. A pool of water. So in the actual hot spring, you can dip your hands in, and that works. Interesting, because for Netilas Yadayim, you can either wash with a cup, or you can actually immerse your hands in a mikveh, just like a person can immerse himself and purify himself. You can do the same with the hands. So if you want to use it as a Netilas Yadayim, you can't, because it's not suitable, it's not drinkable. But if you want to use it as a Tvilas Yadayim, some actually say, you make a special bracha al Tvilas Yadayim. Not sure, but certainly there's a method of Tvilas Yadayim that you can do even in this water. So that's Chizki's approach. Aval matbilin behen seidai. Rabbi Yechon Amar, he says, no. Kol gufay tovel behen. Yeah. This water is suitable for tvila of a mikvah, meaning if a person became tummy, he can immerse in this undrinkable water. But he can't just use it to purify his hands. Now, the lashon of panav yad v'raglav, the Parshim explains, just an expression. Typically, you rinse your face, you wash your hands and your feet, as a quick rinse. So that's what he means to say. He means to say you can't purify your hands. That's the main point. You can't immerse your hands in this undrinkable water. So he disagrees with Chizkiya, who allowed tevila of yadayim in this water. Asks the Gemara, what do you mean? Hashta kol gufay tevel behem. Rabbi Yechon concedes that the full person can immerse in this water. Panav yoda v'ragla koshke. Certainly, just his hands. I mean, if it's good for tefillah, it's good for this, it's good for that. Amar Papa, you're right. You have to understand what he's saying. He's not speaking about a regular mikveh. In a regular mikveh, you're right. You can be tovel, you can be tovel your hands and your body. Amar Papa b'mkaiman, in their place, meaning if it's an actual, the pool itself. The kuliyamale pliga de shari all agree it's okay. Rashi says the shame tvila aleim kechal mayonas mikvahs. It's like any other mikvah, any other spring. Jump into it, become tired, your hands, whatever you want. Mishkal minayu b'mana, as opposed to drawing from this water with a kli and using it to wash, to rinse your hands, since it's not ro'i l'shtiya, it's not drinkable. The kuli amalei pligi de aser all agree. Even Rabbi Yechon holds that you can't. Even Chizkiya, you can't. There's no question that it's not suitable for that. Why? Because, as we said, this is water which is not ro'i l'shtiya. It's not. It's possible for Netilas Yadayim. So tvila, immersion, yep. Netila, no. Keep please. Machlokes is only in the following case. When do we even have a discussion? In the case of the paskinu, he disconnected b'baspirta in this mini channel coming off the main pool. So he sort of diverted some water into a small channel. It's not the actual pool itself, but it's not a container. And the question is, could I be toivel? Could I immerse my hands in this really undrinkable water, which is in this small channel? Technically, halachically, since it's connected to the actual mikvah, since it's connected to the pool, to the spring itself, it's regarded as an extension of that mikvah. But since it's small in size, there's room for concern. What's the concern? Mar savar gazrina baspirta otumana. Rabbi Yechon says you can't be toivel your hands in this little channel. Well, guys are concerned that it might lead to him drawing water out of that with a container and washing his hands. He might mistakenly just wash. Instead of dipping in, say, okay, no, I'll just wash it. And that changes the whole equation. Because immersion is a mikvah process. Mikvah doesn't need to have drinkable water. But once he draws water out of that little channel into a kli and rinses his hands, that's employing the netila process, which has its own set of rules. It needs to have real water, drinkable water. So we're concerned that one might lead to the next, and therefore you can't even immerse in this basbirta. Mar savar gazrin and basbirta atumana, concerned about a kli. Umar savar chizki said, look, we're not concerned. That'll confuse one with the other. So we allow him to immerse his hands and biyetze his netila that way. Ketanai. And this links up to another machlekes Tanaim about the same exact scenario. Maim shenifselu mishtias behema, water which is not drinkable even for a behema. Bekelim psulim. So if you're going to use it out of a container, rinse your hand, that you can't do because you need maim that's roy l'shtias, shtia. Bekarka, but if it's in ground, you're just immersing, ksherim, that's okay. As per the halachos of Tvila. Rav Shimon also Omer af bekarka tovel ben kol gufoy avalei pani avadev raglav, even if it's in the ground. If you want to dip your whole body into it, fine, but you can't just do it on your hands. Ask the Gemara, hold it. How could you say that? If it works for the whole body, it doesn't work for the hands. Hashta kol gufoy, right? Like the same discussion like we had before. Hashta kol gufoy tovel behen. If it works for the entire body, yadav raglav v'koshkin, of course for his hands. Elav the paskinim basbirt, it must be that he disconnected and he veered it off to this little side channel. But pligid machalikas is whether you can dip your hands in that little channel. The mar savar gazrinan basbirt atumana. Mar savar gazrin. One says, look, if we're going to allow it here, you're going to do the same with a kli. And once it's contained in a kli, it's not going to be usable for netilas yadayim because it's not suitable for drinking. And the mar savar gazrin disagrees. He says, you know what? Dipping is different than rinsing. So just like you could immerse your whole body into it, you can certainly immerse your hands. That's not a problem. Okay, now for the background. Why do we have the mitzvah of netilas yadayim prior to eating? Amar Rav Idi bar Avin Amar Yitzchak bar Ashyan netilas yadayim leChullin mipnei srach truma. The only reason why Chachamim instituted the hand washing prior to having chulin bread, regular bread, it's on account of srach truma, because it could. It's meant to train us. Srach truma means it's drawn after truma. It's related to truma. It's meant to safeguard truma, to make us accustomed to eating with clean hands. Because you see, when it's really truma, and one just touches that truma with plain unwashed hands, the halacha is that stam yadayim, unwashed hands, were given the status of sheni l'tumah, somewhat tamei, and what touches truma makes it tamei, makes it possible. So since hand washing is required for truma, likewise Chacham instituted a broad-based practice to include any type of bread, any type of meal. Now, we discussed yesterday, why is it specific to bread? Because truma really can be bread, it can be bananas, it can be... So the answer is that minat Torah, truma only applies to dagan, tiroish, v'yitzar. Dagan is grain, tiroish is grapes or wine, yitzar is olives or oil. Now by liquids, it's not really a concern because people typically don't handle liquids directly with their hands, usually in a kli. No concern of becoming apostle just by contact. So the primary issue is regarding bread, which typically a person handles just directly with his hands. And since, unlike fruit and vegetable, which are only truma d'rabbanan, bread is minat Torah, so they instituted takana for any bread eating. So prior to a bread meal, you wash your hands. Furthermore, mishum mitzvah, it's also a mitzvah. Ask the Gemara, what do you mean? My mitzvah? What do you mean it's a mitzvah? Amar Abaye, mitzvah l'shmat im chachamim. We have a mitzvah to adhere to the words of the chachamim. It's a pasuk in the Torah, a pasuk in the Dvarim, Perek Zayin, pasuk in Aleph, right? Al pi ha'Torah asher yerucha, v'al ha'mishpat asher yomer l'cha, ta'aseh lo yisasher min ha'davar, asher yagid l'cha yamin ha'smol, meant to stray from the words of your teachers, of your rabbeim, of your chachamim. And since they instituted this takana, it's a mitzvah to adhere to it. Now Tosfos asks, what's the second point? Obviously, they already instituted it because of the truma. So that itself makes it a mitzvah. What do you have to give to it? Shlomo says, Tosfos, the tikkun mishum nekiyus. You would think that the initial takana was just nekiyus, for cleanliness. I'm saying somewhere the other way around. The Tosfos means to say that aside from the truma concern, they made a special takana for cleanliness. Okay, that's one way to learn. In Tosfos, either this way or the other way. Somewhere that in Rashi that the Gemara means to say that on account of the first reason it would be more like a safeguard thing. It's just we're doing this to safeguard the truma. But the second point is that we actually get a mitzvah. There's a positive element too. Even when we do it for chulin, we're mekayim divrei chachamim. It's a mitzvah. We get schar for it. It's not just a precautionary measure. There's an actual positive element to it as well, right? We make a bracha, right? Mitzvah, right? There's kedusha, right? Mitzvah l'shmei divrei chacham. Rava Amar, I'll tell you what mitzvah means. Mitzvah l'shmei divrei Rav Eliezer ben Arach is based on Rav Eliezer ben Arach's point, who discovered a pasuk that hints to this concept of pre-meal washing. And that's the mitzvah the Gemara is referring to. Anything that the zav touches, prior to washing his hands, becomes tummy. And the question is, Hashatav Torah, so he washes his hands, he's tar. So just because the zav just washed his hand, he has to wash his whole body, he has to table. Just cleaning your hands spares the item that he touched from tumah. What does that mean? Ha-tvila boy, you need tvila to purify yourself from ziva. The pasuk is referring to something else as well. Aside from the issue of the zav touching, likewise, there's another fellow who, prior to rinsing his hands, those hands are considered tummy. And likewise, the item that he touches is tummy. The Torah is hinting to us that there's an element of tumah upon touching food prior to washing one's hands. So, washing hands before a mealtime is in fulfillment of this hint, of this remez in the pasuk, and that's what the Gemara meant, mitzvah. Amr was Amr Veisha, like Amr until Sedam Paris. This whole washing is only for bread. Washing hands for Paris prior to eating any other foods is not a mitzvah. It's just a matter of cleanliness. So the Chachamim perceived that he meant like this. It's not obligatory. It's not a chayva to wash before eating other foods. But it is a mitzvah. Amalu Rav says no. It's not a chayva. It's not a mitzvah. It's just an optional thing. Pligader of Nachman. Now this statement that washing prior to other foods is optional isn't disagreement with Rav Nachman, who doesn't allow it. Rav Nachman, appears that one washes his hands prior to touching other foods. Just being arrogant and being haughty, being super, clean. It's not proper practice. Amar Rabba Barachana Havakimna Ami Rabasi says Rabba Barachana. There's a story of Havakimna was standing, Kamei, in front of the Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Yasi. So I was keeping them company. And I noticed they were being served food. Aisul Kamayu Kakol de Peri. They were served a basket of fruit. Vachlu, and they had the fruit. First of all, they didn't wash their hands prior. Number two, they did not invite me to the meal. They didn't offer me anything. Number three, Ubarach Chad Chadachudein. Each one made his bracha achroina on his own. They didn't join together like a zimun, right? And I learned 3 things from this incident. Shema min atlas. We can derive 3 conclusions. Shema min ein tilas dam leperes. Number 1, you don't wash before peres. Shema min. Number 2, in mezam leperes, as opposed to a bread meal where you're meant to join together with a minimum of 3 people there, so that they can have this joint collective brachas hamazon, which is considered of a higher level, right? But by peres, there's no concept of zimun. Why? How do I know that? Because otherwise they would have invited me to the meal to get them a group of 3 to allow for zimun. Apparently there's no zimun for peres. Shema min. Number 3, we learn shnaim she'achlu. When 2 people sit down to eat, mitzvah lichalak. There's a mitzvah for them to separate, meaning each one should have his own bracha achroin, his own brachas hamazon, rather than one doing it on behalf of the other. You're meant to make your own bracha. Tanya nami hachi, we find likewise in the brayso, shnaim she'achlu, 2 people had a meal, mitzvah l'chalak, the mitzvah for them to separate, meaning each one should do the bracha, brachas hamazon, for himself. When is that true? They were both learned people, and they both know how to read Hebrew. Yeah, aval echad sofer, but one is learned, echad bor, one is unknowledgeable. In this case, the knowledgeable fellow should do the bracha on behalf of himself and his mealmate. So how do we go about washing one's hands? Depends for what. Until it's dayim l'chulin, washing before a chulin meal, ad haperek. According to Rashi, there are different ways to learn the Gemara. According to Rashi, it's ad haperek, which means if you run up from the nail towards the wrist, the second joint, right? The second joint is where you have to wash till that's it. That's it, because as Rashi says on the base, he says because since you're only washing now on account of a truma concern, Daya says Rashi, it's enough. Just wash, the part that actually handles the food, which is the tips of your fingers. The hainu Rashi, it's boys. So by chulin, it's a minimal wash, second joint only. The truma ad haperek, but when it's actual truma, got to be a bit more careful. Go up further to the next perek. Rashi learns it's the knuckles, where the fingers join, the palm. However, Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim B'Mikdash, when the Kohanim wash their hands and feet in the Beis HaMikdash, preparation for the Avodah, that needs the full hand. Ad HaPerek, that's until the wrist. So it's the full hand. V'chol davar shechoytes b'tvila b'guf, choytes metilas daim l'chulin. And any chatzitza concern that's applicable by bodily immersion, by tvila, right? Can't have any stuff glued to your skin, and would pose a chatzitza concern by washing and tilas daim as well. Choytes b'tilas daim, even the ones l'chulin. Also b'kiddush daim raglayim b'mikdash. So one has to ensure that his skin is free of any barriers, any chatzitzas, any residue that might get in the way. Okay, Amar Rav. Ad kan l'chulin. Ad kan l'truma. Rav's version was that how far do you wash by chulin and by truma? Like the Brisa said, right? Like the simple meaning of the Brisa, chulin is the second joint, and truma is the third joint, the knuckle. Shmuel Amar Shmuel understood the Brisa differently. Ad kan Shmuel Amar Ad kan bein l'chulin bein l'truma l'chumra. He says whether it's chulin or truma, both up until the knuckle. Okay, the full finger. Rav Sheshes Amar had a different approach. He goes l'kula ad kan until the second joint. Bein l'chulin, bein l'truma l'kula. Amar Bar Herdia says Bar Herdia. Rabbi Ami. I was standing in front of Rabbi Ami. But he explained. He showed like Shmuel. Ad kan until the knuckle. Bein l'chulin, bein l'truma l'chumra. He took the strict approach. But I don't think it was only Rabbi Ami B'Shem the Kohen who Rabbi Ami was being very machmir because he was a Kohen, accustomed to eating truma, and therefore he just adopted a consistent approach always washed up to the knuckle, whether it's chulin or truma. That's not the reason. Meaning, and otherwise, a regular person who's not accustomed to eating truma perhaps doesn't have to do that. That's incorrect. The Harabi Miyasha, by Breder Rabbi Shimon Levi, look at him. Hulivai, he was a Levi. And he also adopted that most strict approach for Amar. He would say, Adkan, up to the knuckle, bein chulin, the truma, the chumra. So apparently, even for chulin, that's required. Halach l'maisa, it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch that we wash until the wrist, right? But it is brought down that there's a shita up until the knuckles, and there is such a shita, but we meant to take the most strict approach and do the full hand. Amarav, here comes an interesting halacha. Okay, you're going on a long road trip, there's not much water on the road, not much opportunity to wash on the plane or whatever. So what do? Amarav noitel adam shtei yadav shachris. Simple, wash your hands in the morning. Have a little hamaitzi there, right? And have in mind, it's going to last until I get to New York. Masna lein kolayim kula. Masna means like a condition, makes a condition. Have in mind that this lasts me a whole day. Rashi says, of course, you have to be careful, guard your hands. Ubavachi Zer, says Rashi on the last line, mulatan from mutamam. You have to make sure not to scratch your head, not to do anything that would disqualify that would abort the natila. You have to keep them guarded. Amrlu Rabbi Avinu Lubnei Paksa. We turn to the next page. Avinu addressed the people of Pakta de Arvus, a place where Rashi says Ein Mayim Mitzuyim Lehem, very short on water. So he gave them some good hearty advice. For instance, you people, where water is sparse, Moshu Yedechu Mitzafra. Look, wash your hands in the morning and have it last all day. Make it tonight and have it last all day. Now, some learn that's only because it was a time of a pressing situation. They had no water. Then we allow this, extension, this full day wash. But otherwise, in ordinary situations where it's not pressing, you're not meant to do this, extended wash. Unlike Rav, who presented it as a legitimate halacha for anybody to follow. Some learn, he didn't mean dafka because it was water was hard to come by. He just gave them advice, but really, it wasn't just for them, it would be for anybody, any situation. Consistent with Rav, who didn't differentiate, who allowed anybody to adopt this practice. Interesting, in halacha it's brought down that you can do that, you can wash at the beginning of the day and have a mind to last all day, but the Shulchan Aruch does bring, he says, if mayim is mitzuyim, if you have water handy, better to wash again without making a new bracha, just in case, it's better not to, but if it's a situation where it's not convenient, it's not, you're on a plane, you're on a trip, of course, it's a very good solution, all day meal. Okay, let's recap today's daf. We started with the importance of mayim rishonim, mayim achronim. We had some stories to highlight that point. We discussed water, hot water, different types, chami ur, chami tveria. We had a story with 3 conclusions, we had the peres, and we had the shiurim of washing, whether it's for chulin, truma, and kiddush yadayim raglayim. Okay, thanks for joining. All the best to you, and atzlacha rabba.